Hello everybody, this is Graeme Anderson, and today I'm going to be looking at Kokopelli. Now when I first saw this game, I can honestly say I wasn't overly excited. It's a card game where you're going to be opening ceremonies and completing ceremonies by playing cards. Neat thing is you can play cards in your own village or adjacent players' villages. Okay, sounds interesting, but not something I was dying to get to the table. But then I noticed something. Way up in the corner here, Stefan Feld. Now, if you've seen any of my previous reviews of Feld games, you know that I am an acknowledged Feld fan. So this got me super intrigued by this game, as I don't think I've ever played a pure card game by Stefan Feld. So I knew I had to get this one to the table. So, will this game be a beautiful ceremony, or just a game we want to end quickly to get through it as soon as possible so we can move on to something else? Let's get it to the table, see how it's played, and we'll come back with my final thoughts on Kokopelli. Here's Kokopelli set up for 3 players. Take the 16 selection tiles, shuffle them, and draw 10 to use for this game. On top of each tile, place a 3-point chit and then a 4-point on top of that. All other point tokens are placed in the middle of the table. Each player has a village board in front of them, and each player will take an identical set of cards. Now before the game starts, each player will go through their deck and pull out 3 cards that match each of the selection tiles. They're going to have 30 cards matching the selection tiles. Add to that the 6 wild Kokopelli cards so that each player starts with a deck of 36 cards. Shuffle that deck, draw 5 cards, and place the rest of them onto your player board. Take a number of game end tiles based on the player count. So for this 3-player game, we're going to be using 9 tiles. The first player will get the first player token. On a player's turn, they will do 2 actions, and you have your choice of drawing a card, open a ceremony, play a card, discard a ceremony, and exchange cards. The draw card is pretty straightforward, so let's go to the open ceremony action. A player's board in front of them has 4 spots for ceremonies. Each ceremony is made up of identical cards plus wilds. When you open a ceremony, you play a non-Kokopelli card from your hand to an empty ceremony slot. If you already have a ceremony of that type, you cannot open another one. Once you have opened a ceremony, the card's ability is immediately available to you. Each of the different card types will grant you a different ability, and they're all outlined on the player aid sheet. And remember, if a card ability contradicts the basic game rules, then the rules on the card wins. For example, you can normally only open ceremonies within your own village, but if you have a fire ceremony in your village, you can open a ceremony in your neighbor's play area, and we'll talk about the play area in a second. Another of the main actions you can choose from is play a card. This is different than opening a ceremony because when you choose to play a card, you're going to be playing it to an already open ceremony. You can either extend a ceremony or finish a ceremony. When you choose to extend a ceremony, you'll be playing a matching card to an open ceremony in your village or the 2 closest ceremonies from your neighbors. This is your play area. So you have your own here and your neighbors here and here. Remember, you cannot open a ceremony here, but if one is already open, you can extend it as long as the cards match. If you have placed the 4th card on a ceremony, then you have closed the ceremony. The player who played the 4th card, irrespective if it was your own village or one of their neighbors' villages, they will take the top victory point chit from the matching selection tile. If you remove the 3-point chit, replace it with one of the game end markers, which will grant 1 point to all players when they close that ceremony at a later date. If you close a ceremony that is not in your own village, then the owner of that ceremony will collect 1 victory points, and whoever owns the ceremony when it's closed will take all the cards and place them in their discard pile. The cancel ceremony action allows you to take all the cards from one of your ceremonies and discard them, therefore freeing up a spot to start another ceremony. And finally, you can exchange card as an action. Discard as many cards from your hand as you wish, but you put them on the bottom of the draw pile, not the discard pile, and draw the same number of cards back into your hand. If at any time after an action you have no cards left in your hand, you immediately get 1 victory point and draw back up to 3 cards. This is not an action. It should be noted that card abilities are active as soon as the ceremony is opened, and you lose that ability as soon as that ceremony is closed. The game will end when either a player's deck is empty or when the last game end tile was placed. Finish the round up and you go to final scoring. All players discard the hand of cards, then count how many cards are left in their draw pile. The player with the fewest cards gets 5 points, and the second fewest receives 3 points. Then, for each ceremony that is still open on their player board, they will receive a point. And the player with the most points is the winner. Let's get back to see what I thought about Kokopelli. So, theme and components. The theme in this one is completely non-existent. The back of the box talks about celebrations and ceremonies, but there's nothing in the rulebook that gives any indication on what the theme actually is. Now, this is a Feld game, and I'm usually not looking for a deep theme in his games, but this one seems to be particularly sparse on theme even for his games. It then puzzles me why they chose to put the Kokopelli on the box in the first place. To be honest, I knew almost nothing about the Kokopelli, but a quick search showed that it's depicted in cave paintings of Native Americans of the Southwest, so I'm not sure how that fits into this theme. I think I have preferred the theme to be something completely made up, since it's not tied to the actual gameplay. So onto the components themselves. They're across the board good. The cards are nice quality and the cardboard components are good as well. I do wish that there were more coins. Every game I play there's always people having to trade in coins for other coins because we're constantly running out of the lower valued coins. I do like that each player gets a player aid sheet that kind of shows you all the actions and all the different cards that are in play. Not so much for the cards that are in your hand, but when you see cards on the other side of the table that your opponents have, it's a nice thing to look up. Now the insert though, this insert is a pain. If you look at this, all your cards stand vertically, doesn't feel overly secure, but obviously this box was designed for, I guess, an expansion to fit in this space, so you have a third of the box that's completely empty. That just annoys me. So overall the components are fine, inserts not so much. On to the gameplay. It's very easy to play. You're going to play a card, cancel a ceremony, or exchange cards. So the rules are nice and simple, but it's the strategy where this game kind of shines. There are 16 ceremonies in the base game, and each game you're only going to be picking 10. So there is a lot of variety, but this can lead to some problems. Remembering what abilities you have and what other players have can take some time. You know, I have the drummer ceremony open, so my ceremonies are closed with 3 cards instead of 4. But Sally has the Mother of Heaven ceremony, so if I play a Kokopelli there, she gets a point, and I need to be remembering this when I'm playing the cards. I'm not saying this is difficult, but there is a fair bit of information to keep track of, and often with the people I played with, there's a fairly regular happening of saying, oh wait, I get to draw an extra card, or oh wait, I forgot to take my point because of this. Now, most of the abilities are pretty straightforward, and not overly exciting. And I think that kind of works to the game's advantage. With 10 abilities in play, you don't want things to get overly complex when you first start playing this game. The complexity kind of comes in with the combination of the abilities. This is something I rather enjoyed. When the abilities are first picked, I love trying to figure out how to make them work to my advantage. You know, I can use this card with that card and make sure that this person has this ceremony open. But after a while, honestly, I wanted to see something new added to the mix of the base 16 ceremonies. Now, I do have some other problems with the game though. For example, when you get near the end of the game, when you have a few of the game end tokens out, people are less willing to close ceremonies that I have open because I will get a point. You know, if you're getting 1 point for closing a ceremony, because that's the last one, you know, it's the chit that's on the card, and I also get a point, then that can lead to some slow gameplay near the end of the game. Now, early on in the game, it's almost always worth closing someone else's ceremony because you're going to be getting 3 or 4 points, so they're 1, maybe 2 points. And I like that you can play in other people's ceremonies, because each player only has 3 of each ceremony, so you generally don't have enough cards to only focus on the ceremonies in front of you. Late game though, there's less of an incentive to close those ceremonies. That's not to say no one wants to end the game. Usually the person that wants the game to end is the person that's running out of cards, and they want to rush the end, because at the end of the game, the person with the fewest cards in the draw pile will score a bonus 5 points. So that's usually the final push to end the game. Now, as for the player count, I played this at 2, 3, and 4, and I can say I think I prefer this game most at 3. For 2 players, there's a slight rule change where you can open 5 ceremonies instead of 4, and you can play on 4 of the 5 ceremonies of your opponent, which is interesting, and I think that's probably the most strategic way to play, but I think at 3 players it really shines. I care about what both of my opponents are doing, and I can affect both of them. At 4, there's always that one player that you don't interact with. So, would I recommend this game? I think overall, yes, I am going to recommend this game. Out of all the people I played it with, I think I enjoyed the game the most. Players' comments usually went from, it's fine, to good. No one loved the game. And I wouldn't say I loved the game either, but I did enjoy my plays. And I do like that initial feeling of trying to figure out the combination of the cards. I also enjoyed the rhythm of the game. Your turns are usually quick and you're engaged in everyone's turn. You're watching what they're opening or where they're playing their cards, so hopefully, you can jump in and finish the ceremony before they get a chance to. I also like that it was not always obvious what you should do. If you're giving people points by playing on their ceremonies, are you sure you're getting more out of it than what they are? But I did feel the game, even at 45 minutes to an hour, felt a bit long, and I almost felt like I wanted the game to end earlier with maybe fewer game end points, especially at 4 players. At 2 players, the game ends at a good time. At 3, it's okay. At 4, a tad too long. I also disliked the confusing theme of the game. That is why I showed the Kokopelli on the box but have no connection in the gameplay. I really think this would have benefited from a completely fabricated world, since the theme has nothing to do with the gameplay. And although each game can be a random setup, the individual card abilities for the most part felt a little underwhelming once you've played the game a few times. I would have liked to see maybe some basic cards in the box and maybe some more advanced cards, so that you can take 5 basic and 5 advanced, or something like that. I felt that after several plays, I was kind of ready to add extra cards to the mix. So overall, I'm going to give Kokopelli a 7.5 out of 10 and the Dice Tower seal of approval. If you like card games, I think you're probably going to enjoy this one. There's enough variety in the base box to keep on you wanting to try out different combinations for your first several plays. Now, I should mention that there is an expansion you can get for this, which adds another 9 ceremonies. I really wish that this was included in the base box, and if it was, my grade would have been higher. Now, this is definitely not my top Feld game. It's not even close to the top of my favorite Feld game. But I definitely felt this was something different from what I've played before, and it was fun enough to keep me wanting to come back to see what the next game holds. And that's it for the moment. Until next time, thanks for watching.